There are always movies that we wished had sequels, or films Disney would take a crack at. Sometimes they're set to be released, but complications happen along the way and we never see them on the big screen. Check out this list we've compiled for you today. Some of these films you may not have known were planned for release. Before we get the show on the road, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the notification squad to keep updated with all of our content. Also, can you guess which feature film these emojis are referencing? Stay tuned to find out shortly following the video. Rainbow Road to Oz. The Wizard of Oz, released in 1939, took us to a beautiful, faraway land and is one of the most cherished movies of all time. And Disney almost took us back to the magical world with the film called Rainbow Road to Oz. The project was proposed, but like many others, it was never finished. It would have been a live-action film about characters in the land of Oz inspired by L. Frank Baum's Oz books. The film would have featured stars from the Mouseketeers, including Darlene Gillespie as Dorothy, Annette Funicello as Ozma, Bobby Burgess as the Scarecrow, Tommy Kirk as the villainous son of the Wicked Witch of the West, and Doreen Tracy as Scraps, the Patchwork Girl. Preview moments of the film aired on September 11, 1957 on Disneyland's 4th anniversary show. MGM's The Wizard of Oz had been shown on CBS for the first time on November 3, 1956. There are theories surrounding why the film was never made, including Disney's failure to develop a decent script, and the popularity of the MGM film on television had insurmountable comparisons. Disney ultimately replaced the movie with a new adaptation of Babes in Toyland. If Disney had created a good script without a lot of comparisons to the original film, it could have been an interesting one to watch.
This guy gets it.
Where the Wild Things Are. Long before Spike Jonze's 2009 live-action version of Where the Wild Things Are, Disney was going to make an animated film. Most of you know that it would have been based off the 1963 book by Morris Sendak of the same name. Man, how cool would that have been if Disney had done this? Not to say that Spike Jonze's movie wasn't good, but having it animated would have been awesome to see. Back in the 1990s, Disney owned the rights to the Where the Wild Things Are books, but unfortunately they were never used. The backgrounds were going to be CGI and the characters were going to be animated the traditional way. Due to the fact that it would have been too expensive, the film was scratched. We know we can't have everything, but this is one of those movies they should have done. Tangled ended up costing tons of money, and look how well that film did. Because Where the Wild Things Are would have been based on a book, it probably would have had a huge following, and could have done very well in the box office worldwide. Oh well, we'll just have to settle with Spike Jonze's adaptation for the time being. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Ferb, I know what we're gonna do today.
Phineas and Ferb. For those of you that enjoy the Phineas and Ferb Disney television show, a film was almost released. Sorry to get your hopes up in case you've been waiting for one for a long time. The tentative title for the film adaptation was Phineas and Ferb. There's very little known about the movie except that it would have been a combination of live action and animation similar to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It was set to be written by Jeff Swampy March, Dan Povenmire, and Academy Award-winning screenwriter Michael Arndt, who's known for Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Toy Story 3, and Inside Out. That's a pretty decent track record. Disney's plan was to have the Phineas and Ferb characters be portrayed by live actors. Dan Povenmire denied this and stated the characters would remain animated just like that of the television show. The film was originally announced in 2011 and was set to come out on July 26, 2013. Then it was delayed to 2014 with a date to be determined later. It was reported that on August 26, 2013, the film had been removed from Disney's release schedule and nothing has been heard about it since. For any fans out there, does the movie sound like something you would have wanted to see?
I can't believe I did this!
Princess Academy. Disney is extremely well known for all of its movies involving princesses. How many young girls do you know that aren't in love with them or want to dress and be like them? Probably not very many. Those girls would have been pretty excited if Disney had released Princess Academy. Princess Academy was set to be an animated short that would have featured all the female characters that debuted from the films that came after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, all the way up to Tangled, including Pixar films. It also would have included characters from Who Framed Roger Rabbit and The Nightmare Before Christmas. Wow, that's a lot of characters to pick from all those movies. That definitely would have been interesting to see how that played out. The short was going to be a musical having similar segments to that of the Fantasia films. The plot was that all of the main female animated characters of Walt Disney Animation Studios and Pixar would interact with each other, dancing, singing, having a grand old time with one another. All of this would take place in a royal boarding school. What kind of cliques do you think there'd be at that school? Which characters do you think would hang out with who?
Why should you be first? Because I'm a lady, that's why.
The Aristocats 2. The Aristocats, which was released in 1970, isn't one of Disney's most popular animated movies, but it's still fun to watch. If you haven't had the opportunity to see it, a family of Parisian cats are set to inherit a fortune from their owner, but a jealous butler kidnaps them and leaves them stranded in the country. Their only help is a smooth-talking tomcat. A sequel entitled The Aristocats II was set to be released in 2008, but it's one of those movies that got swept under the rug and forgot about. It sounds like the project went through multiple scripts and didn't really have a clear vision from the beginning. They were given the freedom to create an original story similar to The Fox and the Hound 2. They had a script to work with, but time and money had already been spent on previous versions, and the Disney producers were getting antsy to get the ball rolling and get something on the silver screen. The script needed some work, but scheduling wasn't ideal, and to deliver the film on time and on budget was a stretch. The time frame to complete all 3 acts was 4 weeks, with possibly 5 and 6 board artists. Needless to say, it was eventually shelved and forgotten about.
Dumbo! The ninth wonder of the universe!
Dumbo II. Dumbo was another Disney movie that came out many years ago, being released in 1941. There may even be some of you who haven't seen it before. If you haven't, it centers on a young circus elephant who's ridiculed for his enormous ears. With the help of a mouse, he's bound to achieve his full potential. If you didn't know, Dumbo II was a planned sequel. It was going to be directed by Robert C. Ramirez. He was the director of Joseph, King of Dreams by DreamWorks. Dumbo II was set to be released in 2001, but was delayed for a long time until it was eventually canceled by John Lasseter. He did that right after being named CEO of Walt Disney Animation Studios in 2006. If you're curious about the film, you can see a trailer on the 2001 VHS and DVD release of the 60th anniversary edition. The plot takes place one day after the events of the first movie. The film would have included Dumbo, Timothy Q. Mouse, and a host of other baby animals. Each animal would have represented at a different stage of childhood, getting separated in New York City. While trying to navigate their way home, each character would learn how to fix his or her problems.
Hi-ho, hi-ho, it's home from work we go.
The Seven Dwarfs. Assuming all of you have seen Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, were you ever curious of their backstory? How did they end up in the forest and go to work in the mines every day? Well, your answers may have been solved if the Seven Dwarfs had ever been released. In the 2000s, Disney Toon Studios began developing an animated prequel to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Mike Disa, the director, and screenwriter Evan Spiliotopoulos pitched a story telling how the dwarfs met each other. It also covered how the Wicked Queen killed Snow White's father and took the throne for herself. Apparently, Disney Toon management didn't agree with the plot. According to Disa, they changed the prequel to revolve around how Dopey lost his voice upon witnessing the death of his mother. Yeah, the first plotline sounds much more appealing. After Disney purchased Pixar in 2006, John Lasseter, Disney Toon's new CCO, canceled the Seven Dwarfs. I guess we'll just have to live with the fact that we don't know how all the dwarfs got together. Or, if we're lucky, Disney will decide to do a live-action version of Snow White, and maybe shed some light on their backstory.
Thanks. I needed that.
Roger Rabbit 2, The Toon Platoon. When Who Framed Roger Rabbit was released in 1988, it turned a lot of heads. It was innovative, upbeat, and very funny, not to mention the fact that it incorporated not only real actors but animated characters as well. The noir-esque tale about a private eye in the gritty city of Toontown is not something one forgets easily. If you haven't seen this movie, it's definitely worth a watch. For those who were curious about a sequel, Roger Rabbit 2, The Toon Platoon was in the works, but it became one of those projects that we won't get to see, unfortunately. The premise revolves around Roger Rabbit learning that he's actually adopted and going in search of his birth mother. The script takes place from 1941 to 1943. Steven Spielberg backed out due to the film's cartoonish depiction of Nazis. A good enough reason to not want to sign on. The first draft of the script was completed on May 22, 1989, roughly a year after the first movie came out. It's unknown if there was a later draft. It would have been great to see the wild Roger Rabbit back on the big screen and, of course, his femme fatale wife, Jessica Rabbit. One of the most attractive cartoon characters you'll ever see in your life.
Libations for everybody!
Tron Ascension. When Tron Legacy was released in 2010, it had a lot going for it. Cool special effects, great music courtesy of Daft Punk, disc battles, light cycles. It was also released in 3D for those viewers that wanted to immerse themselves in the virtual world. For all of you who enjoyed Legacy, a sequel entitled Tron Ascension was in the works, but at this point it doesn't look like we're gonna get to see it. Sorry folks. A teaser trailer was supposedly going to be released on the DVD and Blu-ray discs in April 2011, but obviously that never happened. As far as the plot's concerned, not much is known known about it. It was speculated that Cillian Murphy would have played Edward Dillinger Jr., who was the ENCOM employee who created a new operating system, OS 12, in Legacy. He presumably would have been the villain for the sequel. It would have been interesting to see how Sam and Cora are doing, or how she's adjusted to life in the real world. Did he use her uniqueness to create anything cool? Was Edward Dillinger gonna try to steal her for his own purposes? All there is to do is speculate at this point.
Boy, this was the best day ever. And my favorite souvenir, this new dent.
To Protect and Serve. To Protect and Serve is an unaired Cars Toon episode that was supposed to be released in 2015 but is unknown if and when it will actually air. The synopsis is that Sheriff needed to take a mandatory vacation, and two overzealous rookies from county take over his duties in Radiator Springs. They're set on making good impressions to score commendations and end up overdoing every aspect of their jobs. They find so-called crimes everywhere they look and turn the usual quiet Radiator Springs into a slew of taped-off crime scenes. Everyone's a suspect and there's nowhere to drive until Sheriff senses something's wrong and returns home to right all of the justice that's been served. It sounds like a pretty great story and would feature all our favorite characters from Cars. Hilarity would ensue for sure. Even from the picture seeing the characters with the two rookies, you can start to picture what kind of mischief would go down. The rookies definitely don't look like cops you'd want to mess with, and Sally and Lightning look pretty terrified. Mater just looks curious and would probably want to be deputized or something. Anything to help out the officers. Well, that's all we have for you today, folks. It's a shame we won't get to see any of these movies, but we can't have everything, right? Were there any movies on this list that you wish were made? Had you heard of any of them before? Be sure to like and comment below. And if you haven't already, go check out our playlist. Oh, and also the answer to the movie emoji is... From all of us at Screen Rant, thanks for watching.